Hi everyone, welcome back to part 2 of hopefully just a 2-part series of building this new lathe stand, getting my lathe mounted to it, and getting it going. In this video I am going to cover fixing the belt on the lathe. I had to get a new V-link belt for it, installing the doors, drawers, and drawer fronts. So let me go ahead and get going. We're going to start with the belt. Oh, and stay tuned because at the end of this I'm going to have a pretty important announcement about the future of this channel. So that should be fun. Okay. Step 1, I need to replace this belt. I do feel a little bit bad because this belt is still in decent shape, and I'm just going to need to cut it off, which means it will no longer be usable as a belt, but I'm not going to undo the motor. That's just not happening at this stage of the game. So let me go ahead and get this sliced off, and then we'll start installing a new one. So as you may remember from part 1, the issue that this belt had was that the way the motor was mounted before, the extra thickness of this top, which is about 3 times as thick as the old lathe stand top, meant that the motor was leaned in a little bit too far, which meant that the belt was rubbing against the inside of this cast iron frame here. And obviously that's not ideal. So what I did was I got a V-link belt. You may have seen these before. They were essentially a modern idea of how to do this. This is just a rubber sort of V-shape. I don't know how well you can see that. Kind of trapezoidal. And this is essentially the same profile, but you can adjust the length of it as you want to because it's made up of a series of links. So what we're going to do is I think I'm going to just wing it, because that's never hurt me before, and make this belt just a few inches longer than the existing one. Weirdly though, the way they pack it means it's kind of coiled backwards, which I guess helps add tension when you put it on, but it does make it a little bit awkward. Alright, so I stopped filming because it was becoming a lot of effort. My dad came out and helped raise the motor as I was working from up here, which made it a lot easier. And you can see now, the belt is nicely tensioned, and there's no rubbing against the casing. So that's about perfect. So huzzah! Next up I could start ripping down some plywood to use for all the different drawer sides. This is that really kind of junky wood that they use for kind of fake siding, but it worked just fine for this. And then once I had them cut to size, I could rabbet the fronts and backs, because that's how I'm going to attach them together. I thought about maybe dovetailing these or using box joints, but for what it is, I don't think it really needs to be anything too fancy. Then I just had to cut a groove that would fit the bottom panel. Assembling these was pretty easy. I used kind of klooched together bits of 1/4-inch plywood that I had lying around just to try to make use of all the scraps. And it went pretty simply. They just go together. And of course you have to check for square every time you do something like this. Then I started milling down some of the scrap 2x4s I had into the frames for the doors and drawer fronts. These cuts were a little bit hairy, but I got the hang of them using the push sticks. Here I am cross-cutting all the pieces for the drawer fronts. And then, just like I did in the previous video, cutting the mortises that are going to fit the frames together. It's actually closer to a bridle joint, what I'm actually doing, but I ended up using the mortiser anyway. I realized after the fact, as I was cutting the grooves that the door panels would fit in. I could have just cut those grooves all the way to the end and used those same ones to make the mortises, but I didn't think that far ahead, and it ended up working out okay anyway, so whatever. Here I am cutting the grooves. And then once that was done, everything slotted together pretty much perfectly. Then I just had to cut down some of the spare mahogany plywood I had. Seems like a little bit of a waste to use it on this, but I figured this is going to be a object I'm going to be looking at all the time. Might as well have it have some class to it. I just did a light bead of glue through here. You don't really need a ton, as long as the corners are good. You can get away with gluing this type of panel because it's plywood. It's not going to expand and contract. If you were using solid wood here, you would not want to put in pretty much any glue here. Then just clamping it together lightly. Then I added some cleats to use for the drawer slide installation. I didn't video the drawer slide installation because it was a bit of a nightmare, but I used Blum undermount slides. There are a million tutorials on how to do them, so I didn't feel like rehashing old ground there. But I got them in eventually, and they were great. Then mounting the drawer fronts. I had never done something quite like this before, so it took a little bit of fiddling, but once I got the hang of it, it was not too bad at all. I just used drywall screws because they're cheap and I had them on hand. They're really not the ideal type of thing to use for this, but they got the job done fine. And once I got the one figured out, it was easy to measure based off of that. Then I just bored the holes in the doors for the hinges, just on the drill press. This was pretty quick and easy to do. I wouldn't want to do it for more than a couple doors, but for just the two I had, it was no big deal. The hinges fit perfectly, and then I just had to drill the pilot holes for the screws that would hold them in place. Then I just screwed them in place. I mostly just eyeballed it. I think if this were in a kitchen or something, I would be a lot more careful and use spacers and that sort of thing. But for this, I just got it visually close with the top of the drawer fronts and then slapped them in place there. And it went on pretty easily. Here I am testing the fit of everything. Everything opens smoothly. All the soft close hinges and hardware are really nice. They give it a touch of elegance that it probably doesn't deserve. The reason I was able to use the soft close things, by the way, were because I already had them from a kitchen renovation we did at our house a few years ago. So I didn't have to spend any extra money on them. I also went ahead and added a couple staples to the side for the cords. This thing weighs about 1,000,000 pounds, but I was able to wrestle it into place. Of course, the floor wasn't perfectly flat, so I had to shim up one corner. Now, I know everyone probably wants to see the lathe in action, and don't worry, the video's not over yet. I will be turning all of the knobs for the doors and drawers. But I did want to address the announcement that I hinted towards earlier in the video. I am a little sad to say that this will be my last project video in this garage workshop. However, I'm very happy to say that it's because I have finally, after months and months and months and months and months of trying, I have actually managed to buy a house. So that's very exciting. I don't want to spoil too much yet, but the shop itself is going to be an outbuilding that needs a lot of work, but it has a lot of historical value, and I'm excited to bring you all along with me for that adventure. There will probably be a couple more videos from here about moving and packing everything up, because that's going to be a whole ordeal in and of itself, and we have to do it fast. But I wanted to get this done so that it was kind of the crowning achievement. And I really think that this project shows the growth I've had in my woodworking ability. A year ago, I would not have been able to make something that was, made out of junk wood, but really a solid piece of furniture that's going to last me forever and look decent while it's doing it. Obviously, it's rough around the edges, and I didn't, not everything is perfect, and there's some misalignments and all these things, but I'm very pleased with it. So, I'll get back to the turning in just a second, but again, thank you all so much for your support thus far. I'm very excited to join you at the new shop, which I will be showing you hopefully in the next video or two. So stay tuned, I promise it's only going to get better from here. after a little bit more chisel work. There we go. Not perfect, but it'll do for what this is.